Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Psychology Department Career Day, a collaboration between the Career Center and the Psychology Department. My name is Deborah Ward, and I am a faculty member in the Psychology Department. Throughout the day, we've invited alumni to join us for conversations about their careers in order to give you insight into different career paths, industries, and to get advice on how to enter and thrive in these fields. Our guest today is Sophie Escario. Welcome, Sophie.
Hi, everybody.
Sophie is a 2021 graduate from St. Joe's with a major in psychology and marketing and industrial organization, who works for Cozen O'Connor as a marketing coordinator. Before this, Sophie worked at Nazareth Academy High School in various roles, including Director of Marketing and Communications. While at St. Joe's, Sophie was an active member of the Philadelphia Service Immersion Program and Alpha Phi Omega. She participated in Apex as well as weekly service and was an Ignite retreat leader. So welcome, Sophie, back to Hawk Hill, everybody. I have a list of questions I will be asking you, and then we will turn it over to a Q&A from our listeners. Ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so first, could you describe for us within your current role, the core responsibilities and what a typical day looks like for you?
Sure. So I'm currently a marketing coordinator at Cozen O'Connor, which is a major law firm in Philadelphia. And I actually started this role just 4 months ago. And I love it so far. And what that entails for me is I'm essentially a liaison, a coordinator between the marketing department, which at Cozen O'Connor, it's about 30 people, and different attorneys within the law firm. So I handle all of the marketing tasks or things that the attorneys might need in order to thrive at their job, whether it is getting new clients, presenting at different conferences, or just interacting with their current clients. So day to day, right now, I do a lot of writing. That's a core piece of my job, which is different from some of the other roles I've had. But I write and summarize articles that the attorneys write. So it's a lot of reading and digesting that information and then transforming it into something that's really consumable for somebody who is looking to hire a lawyer, whether that be a major company or an individual. And I work with a couple different groups of attorneys, which is the things that I'm reading and the things that I'm doing for the attorneys is really interesting to me. It's intellectual property attorneys, it's labor and employment attorneys, healthcare and life sciences attorneys. And then one group that's really cool and kind of connected to the college education space is I work with an institutional response group of attorneys who work with colleges and universities to handle major communications that they might need to produce. So a lot of writing, a lot of website editing, and then just really coordinating some different details for events, sponsorships. If an attorney wants to go to a conference and they want to sponsor it for $10,000, then I have to be the person to work with that event and make sure that they get all of the materials they need. That's just a little insight to the day-to-day of what I do.
So how did you decide to pursue this particular career path or this particular job?
Yeah, so I started at St. Joe's in psychology, and up until my junior year, I was just a psychology major, and I took a social psychology class with Dr. A, actually, whom some of you might have had her as a professor. And I absolutely loved that class. And I wanted to see how I could use psychology in a way that was more social, which focused on the way people think and make decisions. And my advisor recommended I look into marketing and at the time when I was a junior, it was new, the industrial organization major or minor. And so I started taking some marketing classes. I minored in industrial organization and then also marketing. And I loved any like consumer behavior class, all of those things. And then I just kind of decided to pursue the marketing and more of that like social psychology path. And that led me to like all of the internships I ended up choosing, what jobs I applied to, and also um, it led to me pursuing grad school through St. Joe's as well.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the grad program that you just finished up?
Yeah, so I just graduated with my master's through the St. Joe's ACE program. It's called the Alliance for Catholic Education. It's a really great program for anybody who's interested in working within education, whether it be as a teacher or in my case, I was an admin. So I was on the business side of the school. Um, I pursued it, and I through ACE, you get a master's free of cost, which is a very enticing offer. So you go into the program and you get placed at a partner school within Philadelphia. My partner school was Nazareth Academy High School. So that's how I started there. I worked full time at Nazareth Academy. And then I earned my master's of business and organizational leadership through the program, again, free of cost. The program provides you with a stipend. You live in community with your other grad students. I actually, up until May of this past year, I lived on campus in Sullivan Hall on Latches Lane, if you're familiar with that area. Um, Housing free of cost, and you just live in community and live off of your stipend, which was very doable for me. And it was a great way for me to get work experience, but also pursue a master's that was going to further me in my career. And I learned a lot and got to experience a lot of different marketing aspects within a school through the ACE program. So I highly recommend it for anybody who might want to delve into the education space. Um, it's a great way to further your education without it being very expensive at all.
So thinking about your current job, is there anything that's really like surprised you? What's the thing that surprised you the most about your current job?
Yeah, I think something that really surprised me, especially coming from St. Joe's, uh, that was really service oriented, and then working at a school for 2 years, again, very mission driven, service oriented. I decided to make a switch and go into the legal industry and do marketing. And it is a very big company. They have uh, 32 offices across the country and in Canada. So it's a major corporate environment. And I think what surprised me the most was, despite going into that environment, I still felt really um, connected to uh, things that like matter to me, whether it be like service opportunities or ways to get involved, like and build community within my job. That was just really important. I think a lot of times people think like you kind of go to the corporate, maybe 9 to 5 or that traditional office job, and you might lose out on some of that. I think if you look for it, there's different ways to kind of get involved within your company. Um, our company is always hosting like different events. We have a women's initiative, a DEI group, and different ways that you can just fun things too. We do book swaps and things like that. Um, so I was pleasantly surprised that I could still find that in my job.
Kind of consistent with that, can you speak a little bit more about the different ways your organization or maybe the industry more broadly can show a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah. So um, Cozen O'Connor does a really great job of that, and I really appreciate that. And I think that's something too. Sometimes you can find with a larger organization that has the resources to kind of provide those opportunities. I mentioned we have a DEI group that's led by attorneys and lawyers who are um, experienced in that background. So they're not only practicing the law for that and defending those types of rights, but then they're just making it very consumable and easy to understand for and host webinars and events for everyone else in the organization, um, whether you're a lawyer or you're an admin or whoever, that I've enjoyed and have attended. And then Something I'm looking to get involved in more too is that there's a women's initiative at the firm. So they host a whole bunch of events. One that they hosted that I didn't get to attend, but I heard from a lot of my coworkers that was really impactful was a imposter syndrome webinar. So especially for women to feel that you can speak up, be confident, and know that you're in the role and you're deserving of that role uh, is really important. So I always encourage, like, if you're looking for jobs or communities that you're trying to get involved in, at least to me, it's very important that they had those types of um, resources because I think it's only going to make you a better professional in your career.
Actually, how did you get your first job or internship, or even how did you get this particular job?
Sure. So maybe I'll talk about kind of like each of my different experiences, but with my internship, that I can't stress enough like how important that one was for me and how important it could be for you. Um, when I was at St. Joe's, and it might still be the same currently, but within the psychology courses, I had the opportunity to do a credit that was called like experiential learning. So instead of taking a class, a traditional in-person class, I got credit through doing an internship. So my internship was at a local nonprofit. It's called DMAX Foundation. Um, and I did all of their social media. And that's how I really kind of delved into that part of marketing. I ran all of their social media accounts. I helped with their email marketing. Um, I even did a little bit of cold calling, which was not in my comfort zone, but I think it just gave me really great experience. I think with internships, sometimes you're doing a little bit of everything, especially in the nonprofit environment. Um, but I did that and I got that through actually the Career Development Center. I found DMAX listed on there. It qualified as my credit and an internship experience. And they kept me on actually as a full-time employee over the summer, which was really convenient because that was during COVID when I was going into my senior year. So I got to work virtually for them. Um, and honestly, I think each job experience has built off of one another. I used the CEO of that nonprofit as a recommendation for the ACE program. And she helped me, write a letter of rec for that. And then from Nazareth, when I decided to leave on my own terms from Nazareth, I actually had former employees who had also left that job who I still had working relationships with. So they helped me be references for my job now at Cozen O'Connor. And I found the Cozen O'Connor job just through LinkedIn. I reached out to actually other St. Joe's alumni who I saw had worked there before. And then I used my references at Nazareth to kind of help me have kind of a little bit more of an in and when applying and making sure I had references that I could easily call.
Is there anything that you wish somebody had told you when you were in school to help you prepare for jobs and internships?
Yeah, I think one one thing I actually did hear attending a psychology career panel that I did hear it in school, but I honestly wish I was reminded of it more. Um, was that your career path is not linear. And I think that my career trajectory is definitely a great example of that because I went immediately into grad school, was thrown into Nazareth, and had a wonderful experience there, but had a really crazy opportunity thrown at me where I went from an assistant in the admissions and advancement office to a interim director of marketing. That's a very big career jump. And then I became the full-time director of marketing. So I think, and then from there, now in a coordinator position at a much, much larger and very different organization. Um, and doing very different things and might not be that same title, but I feel as if I almost have even more responsibility because I'm at a bigger firm and some of the things I'm doing are a little bit more um, impactful in a different regard. But I think when I got that opportunity, I was very overwhelmed, and that imposter syndrome too came in. I was like, I don't think I have the experience, the credentials to be doing this. And I was very lucky to be in the ACE program with actually St. Joe's employees who were in my through my grad program who were very like encouraging me to take that opportunity. And I'm so glad that I did. But I think just to remember, whether it's you're getting a promotion, whether you're unemployed for a year, whether you can't land an internship or you didn't get your like dream internship, that nothing's linear. But the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway is to just to hold on and to really foster like great relationships wherever you go. Because I can say that whether it be from St. Joe's, from DMAX, from Nazareth, those have been what I've been leaning on as I navigate my career. But then again, to just not compare and to know that you can switch from thing to thing within a certain area if you want to make a full 360 switch. I went from education to a law firm, very different. But to know that like each stepping stone is going to get you where you need to be, but that to take advantage of each step and to make those relationships within each step because it'll make it easier as you go along.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but are there any, specific experiences or specific psychology courses that you would recommend our current students to take to help them prepare for the job market or for internships?
Yeah. Um, I will say that both research methods and then my capstone class were two courses that I think really improved my writing, improved my organizational skills, improved the just like especially with research methods, just the process, whether it's you're going to become a psychiatrist or a therapist and you need to know the ins and outs of the research method process, or in my case you're going to go do something like marketing, where psychology is still really involved. Going through processes and being able to um, test different things is really um, important. I just feel like it improved my writing, and in my job right now, that's a big chunk of what I do. And I have been and I'm humbled by it, but I have been told by like my boss and my managers like that was even 2 months into my job that they're very impressed with that writing, and I credit St. Joe's a lot to that, with having courses that you might need to write a 20-page paper and it might be very stressful in the moment, but it being able to organize, edit, and proof and go through your thoughts in that process was really important. Um, and then I guess aside from courses, just getting involved um, in extracurriculars, Apex was one of my favorite things that I got involved in at St. Joe's. I was a participant, a leader, my junior and senior year. And I actually just came back last year as an alum facilitator. So I was with a group of St. Joe students as an alum and working with senior and junior leaders. And I just know that any leadership position in a club, specifically Apex, which was really impactful for me because I met with a co-leader once a week to plan a week-long service trip, and just going through those logistics, getting on the phone with service site contacts and having those types of conversations, um, and being held to deadlines and being held to paperwork and things like that. We have a lot of responsibility. Was really impactful and I think helped boost my confidence and also helped me learn collaboration. Um, so I definitely recommend that to anybody, as well as the Philadelphia Service Immersion Program. I know that you need to be either like a freshman or a sophomore to do that. But if you want to get involved as a leader, that was another program that I really benefited from. And also the connections with programs like that, the friends you make and the relationships you make, I think go a while past your time at St. Joe's.
That your Jesuit education has impacted your work or your career decisions?
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely has impacted it a lot. I mean, that's why I chose to continue at St. Joe's through ACE. And also, that's what got me into the education space. Um, Working for Nazareth Academy, which is a private Catholic all girls high school in Philadelphia. Um, their mission was faith, family, and education. And I just resonated with that mission. I think I'm drawn to organizations that are mission driven. And even at Cozen, just the work that some of the attorneys are doing, like I try to lean into the ones that I really care about a lot more and just know that like my work here is impactful in different ways. um, but I do think also just the fact that you had to take different courses. I actually took like a sports law course one time, and now it's really impactful in my career now because I can reference like NIL deals and things like that. I'm like, oh, I actually took a random elective because St. Joe's offers so many different courses, or a lot of my philosophy courses, just the arguments that I took, like I learned from those. Um, they show up in funny ways in my career. Um, but I do think it has got given me a moral compass of the types of companies and types of organizations I want to work for. Education was easy, like it was an easy thing to connect to. But I think it also helps with if you are going somewhere like you're going to become an accountant or you're going to go work for a major corporation. I think it helps you lean into finding meaning and finding some value in your job and ways to get involved beyond just the tasks you might be doing on a day to day, how to connect with others on like a deeper level. St. Joe's definitely gave me that.
And so I have one more question before we start to wrap up with this part. But is there any, specific kind of interviewing tips or job search tips that you can share with us?
Sure. Actually, this was what I was doing all of from August to about November until I landed this job. I Number one is just in everything you do, like starting now with your professors, with your classmates, um, just again making those connections and keeping those connections. Dr. A was a great resource for me. She wrote recommendations letters for me. She um, has been someone I've kept in touch with and actually I think, recommended me for this opportunity. So, um, really building those connections is going to help you. But actually, for interviewing, um, I did go and through the career development center my senior year and did the resume builder and review. I submitted my resume through there. I did interview prep. I did mock interviews through the Career Development Center. Really boosted my confidence going into those. Um, but I do think researching companies before you interview with them, practicing like it sounds silly, but I literally would stand in front of the mirror and practice like how I would respond to certain questions. Um, and being really open in the job search too. I do remember going through at St. Joe's. I lived with six other girls, and I remember all of us were going through the interview process, and some were pickier than others. You know, they're like, oh, it says 2 to 3 years experience. Like, I don't have that, so I'm not going to apply. Just apply. I mean, obviously, you don't want to spread yourself too thin. Um, but I on paper didn't think that I necessarily aligned with the job I'm in now. And then I went through the interview process, applied and got an interview, and realized that so much of what I do is something that I really enjoy. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't apply. And then also, and I encourage you to, any of you could connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like after this, but I reached out to different SJU alum if I saw on LinkedIn that they worked at the company I was applying for. I just threw out, hey, like the hawk will never die, and I'd love to chat with you about like your role. If you have the time and you want to set aside 15 minutes, I'd just like to know about what you do. Um, I think being strategic too in how you approach those conversations. You don't want to say, hey, can you, be a reference for me for this job? That might be asking maybe a little too much for some people, but just an informational interview. People love to chat about the things they do, and they love to, impart knowledge and share about their days and their tasks and their day to day. So, connecting in that level as just an informational interview for any alum. It also especially helps when you are involved in similar things. So like anyone who they could be 10 years out, but I saw that they were also an Apex leader. That's a great connection to make as you're seeking advice and information on different companies. So definitely, I think the connections is the really big piece.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sophie. Before we switch over to the Q&A portion, did you have any last things you want to share or any things that I didn't ask that you thought I should have?
Um, I'm I don't think so. I just think like as a 2021 grad who got like impacted by COVID and my junior and senior year, really just take advantage of your time at St. Joe's and get involved. Um, Sign up for the class or that a cappella group or the extracurricular that you might be hesitant about, and just go ahead and do it, and go out for the leader position. um, and yeah, and don't be afraid to kind of be the first person to reach out. That felt awkward for me in the interview process and reaching out to alums, but more times than not people are really really willing to help you along the way. And again, I'll be happy to be anyone attending this seminar, like someone if you want to chat one-on-one and get advice and career perspective. I'd be happy to do that too.
All right, so we're going to transition now to the Q&A portion. Students, if you have a question, please use the raise the hand icon and either Lisa and I will call on you. And yeah, when it's your turn, just please let your guest know your name and your year at St. Joe's. And then anybody in the classroom, I'll try to facilitate that. I have one in the classroom. This is from Carolyn. What is your year, Carolyn?
I'm a junior.
Carolyn is a junior. And what's your question?
Do you have any advice for people applying to grad school?
Not sure if you heard that. Do you have any advice for people applying to grad school?
Yeah. Having gone through that process through St. Joe's, definitely start early. If you're applying to multiple programs, it's definitely gonna be a lot. It's just like how when you were in high school, and except there's no common app and you just got to do each application. So start early, and also just I think ahead of time, think about the people that you want to use as references, and before you're only 2 weeks out before they need to write a letter, have a conversation with them and let them know, look, I'm applying to grad school. I might need a recommendation letter as I'm going through that process, just so it's on. That'll be real to give people advance notice, because I'm sure almost I needed at least three or four recommendations for the ACE program. So depending on what you're applying to, just give yourself time and give people notice for those things.
We have another question in the classroom. Ryan, what's your year, Ryan? Ryan is a sophomore.
I was just wondering, I'm a double major myself in communications and psychology, so I was wondering, how well do you think the psychology major is able to transfer over to other potential career paths? Like you were marketing, but how well do you think psychology can translate to, like, let's say, like communications or English or like other career paths?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, I was a psychology major and then I minored in marketing. So I remember feeling apprehensive going into like applying to marketing jobs, and actually it became a conversation starter in interviews. People were like, wow, you majored in psychology, like, how did you get here? And I do talk about, I focus on the things about psychology that are extremely relevant to my job. So anytime it came up in an interview where people were like, how did you get here? I always focused on my social psychology class, knowing the ins and outs of the way people think, the way they make decisions, different communication styles. I think you learn a lot about that in your social psych class. Um, and then also research methods and the writing process, having to go through things in a very systematic way to drive results is a great way to show that psychology transfers over um, in those senses. And also for me, I think I had a unique experience with my internship. Um, I found DMAX Foundation through, again, the Career Development Center. It's a nonprofit that focuses on mental health. So just having my psychology background was just a nice, I guess, like intro into the space that they work in. So depending what types of companies and places you're looking for, maybe they're like healthcare related, maybe they're mental health related or something like that. Psychology will definitely play a great role, but I just think about like the transferable skills, the writing, the research process that really help you within any career.
And then
I do have,
oh,
go ahead, Deborah.
I was gonna
I-
say, Isabella had her hand up for a little bit, and then we have someone in the chat, and then we'll come to Julia in the classroom. So let's go with Isabella first. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Isabella, and my question is just, what advice would you give to people that are struggling with like building their resumes right now?
Yeah. I think one, to just include, like, I know some people struggle with having a lot of experience and trying to figure out how to narrow it down into like a one-page resume. I also know people who feel like they don't have any experience to like put it down. I think really for me, the Career Development Center definitely did help. I did I submitted it through there and they gave me edits. But something that I think I just learned also just through coworkers and as I was leaving Nazareth to go to Cozen, trying to quantify the things that you do too is really impactful. So instead of saying that at Nazareth, I managed all of their social media accounts as like a bullet under my experience, I would write, I managed 4 social media accounts and grew them by 1,000 followers within the 2 years I was there. Being very specific. I think sometimes it's like a buzzword that I hear at work too, like the SMART goals, specific, measurable. I don't know what the other letters stand for at the moment, but just being specific and quantifying it. I know sometimes like your work might be a lot more meaningful than a couple numbers, but when interviewer and someone who's reading your resume out of a pile of like 100 at quick glance, they want to see something that has impact. So I think that would be really important. So it could be like your high school job that you worked at, finding ways to make it very marketable and quantifiable will just give you that little bit of edge, I think.
That links in pretty nicely to transition to Dr. Garrigan's question in the chat too, which was, what skills do you think people coming into the job market right now are most lacking? So you had mentioned writing, but what are other things that we can work on that we can make sure we highlight in our resumes?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, writing is people are looking for that too. One thing which could be definitely like a little bit of a controversial topic, but has been an asset for me in my job is our marketing department is trying to find ways to effectively, creatively, and like efficiently use AI tools. And not, I by no means like take an article that I have to summarize and have AI do it on its own, but I have to like figure out how to use it to my advantage. And maybe it can help me, edit something, reword something, and I think through it myself. But I think that's where it's almost like problem solving. And I think the research methods course again went back to that because I had such a strong foundation in writing, I now can like incorporate this tool into it, but not to be reliant on it either, but to find ways to use it as an asset. I have someone on my team who wants me to teach some of the other coordinators in my group how I use it to, be more efficient in my job, but also to, not rely on it, not make mistakes from it, and kind of find that balance. I also think one thing too, since I've been at my job, I've seen a couple of people come and go and struggle with just being sociable and confident at work too. So like the interview prep and presenting. I know for our capstone in psychology, we had to stand in front and answer questions from professors and present on our topic, and maintain eye contact and memorize what we were going to say, and be confident about presenting. That's really important, and that will be, I think, a differentiator in the interview process. But then also when you get to work, there's days where I choose to sit with all my coworkers at lunch and chat and form those relationships, and make sure that I'm putting myself out there. I think that's really important in the job market too.
And then we had a question in the classroom. Julia, did you want to go?
Would you explain more about the ACE program and the application process that it applies?
Sure. So if you actually go on the website, go on to St. Joe's, they should have their own section. It stands for Alliance for Catholic Education. Even if you go on to like the search bar and search it, you'll be able to probably find all the deadlines and processes. It's pretty self-explanatory on there. I think they're actually still accepting applications. And if that's something you want to reach out to me one-on-one about too, like I know the program directors pretty well, so I could put you in contact with them, but all their information's online. You just filled out a pretty standard form. There was a couple of writing pieces, some recommendation letters needed. And then through there, if accepted into the program, you just go through a placement process. So they would place you at a certain school within Philadelphia. And you would get your job assignment from there. And then there's some onboarding stuff as it comes to the beginning of program, which starts at the end of June, like moving into your community house and signing up for classes and getting started on classes. But it was an excellent program. It is a 2-year program. So I worked for 2 years full time, did my master's for 2 years. You can see actually all of the offerings. It's not just Masters of Education, Masters of Business and Organizational Leadership. They also have a social work 3-year option, and a couple others on there. I think it's also a really great opportunity too. You would have to double check this on the website, but I do believe they're looking at counseling, like school counseling as positions too, which would be really relevant to anyone in psych who's kind of going that route, not more of the business route that I did. But again, if you want to reach out to me and learn more about that program, I'd be happy to talk about it. It was a great program that I highly recommend.
We got 2 questions in the chat and we got 2 or 3 more in the classroom. Okay, so, and maybe Tyler and Lily's question can kind of be answered together. So Tyler is looking for input on what kinds of career paths could be available to a psychology major without a master's degree. And Lily is asking about, well, what about for a first year who wants to transfer into the psychology major? Would you actually recommend that or recommend minoring?
Yep. I mean, I definitely recommend a psychology major. I think it's very transferable to any career path. I think one thing I will recommend for any psychology major who isn't looking to do a master's program, who isn't looking to become a therapist, become a counselor, like anything that would require additional schooling. That's when I knew that wasn't the route I wanted to go. So I added my minors. I added industrial organization and I added marketing to kind of round out my experience, and really focused on finding an internship that I thought I would like, to kind of navigate what kind of career I might want to go into. So I definitely recommend psychology as a major. But depending on what you might want to do, adding a couple, maybe like a minor or two to round it out. As someone who's a psych major who doesn't want to pursue a master's, I was flipping back and forth between doing the ACE program and then just going straight into a career. I wasn't looking to do a master's in anything on more of the science side of psychology. So I wasn't looking to do any of like the 4+1s that the psych department offers. But I just started applying to jobs while simultaneously filling out the application for ACE. So I definitely recommend doing that. I recommend definitely an internship or two then, to kind of see what you might like and build those relationships professionally before getting into the job search process like your senior year. And again, like rounding it out with the internships and extracurriculars. I don't think I went into the ACE program just because it felt like a great next step and path for me. I think I also could have gone into Nazareth as an assistant without doing the ACE program, or I could have gone into a different environment and like entry level job without getting my master's. It just felt right to me. But I think anyone with a psych major would be really prepared to enter an entry level job post grad as well.
So I think we are technically at the 50-minute time, but I do know we have a couple more questions. Are we okay to push a couple extra minutes? What do you think, Lisa? What are you feeling, Sophie?
I'm available, so yeah, I don't mind.
All right, then I saw Amy first, then Caitlin, and then Abby, and then we'll wrap it up after that.
I'm a junior, but I also was wondering, was there an extracurricular that you did at St. Joe's that you felt like helped push you in your career, or like any skills you learned from that that you now use in your career, like aside from classes?
Yeah, actually, that just reminds me I didn't touch on something I wanted to talk about. So I guess whether for me, honestly, Apex and PSIB were the two biggest, like most formative things that I did at St. Joe's that on, I think at like first glance, you might not think that would like immediately impact my career. But again, once I started quantifying the things that I did as a PSIB coordinator, my senior year, I was in charge of the whole program. So I was interviewing students, I was reading applications, I was forming a team and doing team bonding and logistics and planning. So once I started naming those things, it definitely impacted like my ability to talk about my experience in interviews and to employers. But the big thing for me is I think within anything that you get involved in, I found something that would directly relate to something that I wanted to do in my career. So for Apex and for PSIB, I was in charge of all their social media accounts. So I was making sure I was taking pictures and posting, and that was a big topic of conversation in my interviews, especially for DMAX Foundation, because then that's exactly what I did for them. For the school, I managed all their social media accounts. So it could be something, for me, it needed to be marketing related, but for whatever you're looking to get into your career, see if one of the organizations you're involved in has a need that relates to your career. So if like you're going into fundraising, maybe you do a fundraiser for your club, or something like that. You can kind of make sometimes your own role within these student organizations. So I think that would be really great, and just finding leadership positions too.
I was gonna ask, what are some of your favorite psychology classes that you took at St. Joe's that you think were like helpful for your career?
I mean, definitely social psychology. I really loved that class a lot. And I think too, it was just the relationship I built in that class with one, my classmates, and then two, Dr. A. After that class, because I was so passionate about it, I think I really did excel in that class. and she had asked me to do some work in her lab with her after that. So I think that was really impactful. If you really like a class, if you really care about a class, get to know that professor and build that relationship. And then really, again, the research methods class, and a lot of my industrial organizational classes. Actually, I had a class with Dr. Dufresne. I forget the actual title of it, but it had to do with really like business and how they're organized and set up. And any of the projects I did on that were so interesting to me. So I was naturally just asking him a lot of questions and forming a relationship with him. So I think really, I don't think it matters exactly the specific class, but whichever one that you're most interested in, most passionate about, just fully dive into that class and make the most of it, connect with the people, that are in charge of that class, and kind of go from there.
And Abby, and then one more came up, and then we will stop.
Did you look at other programs for grad school or just ACE at St. Joe's?
Yeah, so for me, really grad school, and this kind of goes back to the guy who asked the question before, grad school wasn't really on my radar. I felt confident with my internship, with psych, and then with my marketing background to just kind of go into finding a job. I was interviewing and I was getting interviews, which was definitely like boosted my confidence a little bit. But as I was going through these interviews, I was like, you know what? None of these really are calling my name. I'm sure if I like made it far enough in one of them and followed through, I could have started at one of those places that I interviewed at and kind of gone from there. But I heard of ACE through a friend who had done it, and I looked further into it. And then once I saw all that it entailed, I was like, you know what? That master's of business and organizational leadership would just add to the industrial organization, the marketing piece. And really, for me, it was the placement process. Once I applied, got accepted, and I interviewed at Nazareth, I saw that admissions advancement position that I was offered would really expose me to just so much. And there was so much room to grow in that role, and things that I would learn that I felt at the time that was more valuable for me. So no, I wasn't looking at other grad programs. I was just kind of looking at, what might be the best next step for me. And it was really just between ACE or just immediately kind of going into the job market.
One final question, Elise in the front here.
My question is, are there any classes, like I know we talked mainly about like your major and your minor, but are there any classes outside of those that really like impacted like how you knew what career you were gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were classes that showed me that I didn't want to do certain careers, which is always a good thing. I loved my psychology major, but I knew after taking BBB, biological basis of behavior, I knew I wasn't gonna go, more that route. I also knew that I took, oh goodness, what was it? It was like a neuroscience course, and I think I did kind of well in it, and I remember someone recommending that I minor in that, and I was like, absolutely not. I know that I liked the class, but I did not like the content. I did not want to it was more of like a struggle to get through for me. So I think paying attention to that, whereas like the social psych class, I was excited to go to class every day. Paying attention to that is really important. I will say it's kind of coincidental, but the sports law class I took for my marketing minor was just so interesting. And it's funny now that it has popped up in random ways for my career. But that was a class that involved a lot of projects. We had to like make our own podcast in that class. So it had a lot of creative elements to it that I really liked. And it going through like a major project, whether it's a 20-page paper or a major presentation that you have to give. I honestly liked project-based work. And again, that's a lot of what I do in my job now. So yeah.
I think we are well past time now. So thank you so much, Sophie. But please, everybody, join me in thanking Sophie for her time today and for providing such great insight into her career and everything that she's done at St. Joe's to get her there. So grateful for you today, and we hope to see you back on Hawk Hill soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
Yeah.
Have
And
a great
looks like
day, everyone.
Please connect with me, anybody. I'd be happy to, talk further on anything that we chatted about. But thank you.
Awesome. Are you willing to have your email shared, Sophie?
Sure. You can share my email, and then also my LinkedIn is just my full name, Sophia Escario. So feel free
That's
to.
even better.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well,
Perfect.
thank you so much from the Career Center. I appreciate your time and sharing your insights, as Deborah said. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you back on Hawk Hill sometime.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, guys.